was your day?
Wonderful, wonderful. Some sports in the lunch break.
Okay.
So I'm a bit tired now. So
Okay, that's perfect. I have lots of critical questions, so
you will wake me up. That's good.
I'll wake you up. Perfect. All right, I think let's get started. Welcome everyone. This is our new format, Buynomics.Talk, for our regular viewers. So usually it's me and Paul, most of the time me talking, and what we thought we will introduce a new format, Buynomics.Talk, where we invite fascinating members of our pricing revenue management community to share some of their ideas, and really happy to have Frank with me. Give you a chance to introduce yourself in just a minute. And I know Frank already for a long time, live in the same city, have I would say, somewhat similar background in pricing. We've already had many, I think, interesting discussions on the topic, and that's something we want to share today. Frank also has a book out. I'm interested in some of the contents, and yeah, let's take it from there. Before we start, just very briefly on myself. So I'm Ingo. I'm your host today. I have a long history in pricing, and I'm the co-founder, managing director of Buynomics. Buynomics, hopefully you've seen us in the past already. Seen what we do is essentially a SaaS solution that allows our customers to really simulate and optimize their pricing and revenue management, so you can see how demand changes if you change prices of your products, if you change some features, if you make a product larger or smaller, or you add a product to your portfolio, or you remove a product from your portfolio. You can simulate that all very well with high precision. Very fast, can make, once it's set up, very fast decisions in minutes or seconds rather than weeks or months, as it's always the case if you first need to do your research. So it's all in one platform, and if this goes well, it's highly profitable. If you're interested, happy to speak afterwards. Just reach out to me or any of my colleagues. This is what we do, and without further ado, let me introduce my guest today. As I said, Frank. He's a new book out, and I think the topic we'll be discussing today is democratizing pricing. I'm really interested in what it is. Thankfully, you sent me your book beforehand. I already took a look. But of course, myself and also our listeners and viewers are interested in what you do. And maybe just to kick it off, just give us a little bit of your background. How did we end up here? How did you come into pricing, into the field? And what brought you here where you are, just as a 2 to 3 minute quick intro?
Yeah, well, thanks, Ingo, for the intro, for inviting me. Yeah, let me think back. So pricing started for me 22 years ago. And when I joined the same company, consulting company you worked for too. So that was my beginning. And I was heavily involved in quantitative pricing research at that time, because management consulting was at that time heavily involved in market research as well. So from that time, it didn't left me off the topic of pricing. I was in the industry where I was championing the pricing function in an industrial company, but later, 2014, founded Success Drivers, which is basically an AI insights lab. We use causal machine learning to find causes of success. And this company changed and introduced new products, and the topic of pricing reoccurred 2016 by research from the University of Hanover, who suddenly used methods from neuroscience, the implicit association test, to measure price demand function. And that's where it became interesting. We were the first users, and we used them for our customers and developed it then even further. And after it turned out to be super helpful, we decided last year to turn it into a SaaS product to automate the whole process. That's how I got back into pricing, and that's also the reason I wrote this book. But it has another motivation actually.
Okay, so of course the question is what the motivation is. Very interesting background. And when I look at the book, so that you have two endorsements, one at the bottom for a former boss, I would say, Hermann Simon, and the one on top, a pricing book for managers who read too many books. What's that all about?
So Patrick Barber is actually a legend professor from London Business School, who worked for the famous Andrew Ehrenberg, together with Ehrenberg, who actually reinvented marketing science in the German area. It's still quite unknown, but it is now cultivated in the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, led by Byron Sharp. And now some of you may know that the book How Brands Grow, and all this goes back to research from Ehrenberg as well as Patrick. And it happened to be that I was in contact and working with them. We used our course of machine learning for one of his Patrick's books, and that's since 10 years we know each other.
And the quote, so why is it for managers who read too many pricing books?
Because it's a very different pricing book, and that's basically also the motivation. I 1 or 2 years ago I bought all pricing books I could find, right? And actually, there's one thing missing in all of those books. It is the question: how can I reliably measure what people want to buy, want to pay? It's always assumed that by a click of a button, you get this information, how people respond to prices, right? But actually, without this information, all your strategy could be bollock, right? It could fall apart if the assumption of how people react to prices is ill-posed or wrong, right? So it's fundamental to get pricing intelligence right, to make good pricing decisions, to have a working pricing strategy. Everyone talks about pricing strategy. That's important, of course, but if this insight is missing, everything can fall apart. And that's where the book is focusing on, and then it starts with the basics, why it's important, what kind of methods are out there, what are the pros and cons of all of those methods. So it is not a specialized book, right? So it's really written for managers who want to get a good overview and really want to understand how to apply it in certain fields, and for consumer goods, for SaaS pricing, for basically new products and so forth.
Interesting. So I think that, I mean, these pricing strategy and willingness to pay, these are of course always also very common topics that we're discussing a lot, and also that are addressed in our solution. So when you say that that's of course what do customers or shoppers want to pay, or how much are they willing to pay for certain products, how they decide between products, these are called very critical points, and if we don't have that right, then we don't have much to offer, I would say. And you say that often many don't get this right. So what's your angle on that? Because there are already like a number of methods. There's like the conjoint, there are like maybe regression-based analyses on price elasticities and so on. There are Gabor-Granger, the Van Westendorp. So there's like a plethora of different methods and tools. What's wrong with them? Why do we need a new one here?
So I can actually refer to a recent scientific study of the University of Australia who tested all those methods on the same products. And they tested also the methodology we have developed, implicit price intelligence, right? And they compared that. And they found that each of those methods, they have their playing field. Yeah. And of course, it can depend on product types and so forth. It can be different. But basically, it were typical consumer products tested, consumables, but also some devices. And the main takeaway, to very simplify, is conjoint is great to optimize your product, to find out, okay, which features is important and so forth. But it actually failed to give a reliable price demand function in a setting, yeah, where these typical products are tested and shown with not very much features. So if you have, yeah, I don't know, if you have a snack, which kind of features do you want to show the consumer, and how real is that, right? That they look at these features. A Snicker is a Snicker, right? So the way you would love to test it is show the product, right, the brand and the price, yeah, and then alter that and test that, and that's how the professor has done it, and basically the results are conjoint great for product optimization, but not so good for pricing.
Product optimization would mean like feature optimization.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
What would that be for the Snickers? How many nuts to put in?
Yeah, I don't know how to featureize a Snicker, but Van Westendorp is great for finding the price range, but finding the optimal price, it's actually even common sense that it cannot find the right price because there is even no costs involved. You cannot find the optimal profitable price if you even don't consider the margin. So it is a heuristic in there, which turns out to be contradicting. But the method is good for finding the price range. Gabor-Granger is also good because it's super easy. Everyone can interpret it, quick to set up. So it's not bad, but we can go better, right? And with implicit price intelligence was basically the winner in validity, tested by correlation with real market share. Yeah, does the demand prediction correlate with the market share, as well as does it predict occasions of promotion? Yeah, does it predict the uplift of sales, right? So that's basically, that was the initiative, that we now have a method which is not just better, it's easier, much easier than conjoint. Everyone can set it up. Yeah, it's super easy, and therefore, because it's easy and standardized, it's also much cheaper than doing a conjoint. Also, you don't need a agency anymore. You can set it up yourself. And this is the point of democratization. Yeah, that's if you now have something which is so easy, every brand manager can use, and if it's so reasonable that you just pay $600 per test, now you can not just test the big shot new product, but basically every product, or at least many of them, and regularly, because yeah, we all know how important pricing is. Of course, there are other methods to optimize the price, because your software is a great example where you basically can optimize the range of your existing products. But outside of that, new products, very new packaging sizes, or industries where you don't have data, which there are a lot of industries, yeah, B2B or whatever, you know it better. Then there are also small brands who cannot afford to give the data from Nielsen. Yeah, they all now can optimize the price because it's very reasonable.
Maybe to help everyone a bit understand what the differences are. So in a Gabor Granger survey, you would, as a respondent, you would be asked, let's say if we use the Snickers example, you would be asked, would you buy this at 80 cents? Would you buy this as 90 cents? Or like if you're interested in price points, you go to 99 and so on. But just for simplicity, you would you buy it at €1, 110, and so on. And then you sort of have a demand curve in the end where it says at 50 cent, maybe 100% buy it, and then at €1, only 70%, at €2, maybe no one. Right, and then you have the demand curve, and when you have the demand curve, you also can compute the revenue optimum, the price optimum, the profit optimum, price elasticities, everything.
Yeah.
So with that, you could also argue that you can compute the profit optimal price.
Yeah.
In this case, and just the Van Westendorp, but the questions would be, I think you have a defined set of typical prices, maybe like also 80 cent, €90, and no, sorry, you would be asked. Sorry, my fault.
Open.
You have an open question. You would say what price is too cheap, is cheap, reasonable, expensive, too expensive, and then I think that helps you give like a reasonable price range, and you have all these different curves crossing, and then I think some magic happens where. Yeah, I think they say the optimum is where was it the cheap and expensive where they meet, right?
Yeah, too cheap and too expensive where they're minimized.
Yeah, it's interesting. I looked that up a long time ago when I was, because it's not intuitive why this should be the best price, right? And if you look in the original paper from Van Westendorp, I think it says experience suggests, or like something really vague where it sounds like you made it up.
Yeah, I mean, you can take this data and compute a kind of a price demand curve as well, right? So where basically how many people would find it still acceptable, right? And that for this you could also draw a price demand curve, but again, to arrive to the profit optimal price, you need costs, right? And within the Van Westendorp framework, nobody talks about costs. He just comes up with a heuristic where the optimal price is, which is ridiculous, because without a cost, you cannot.
Yeah.
Right?
But you can, right? If you use it to generate a demand curve, you could, right?
Yeah.
To me, like the intuitive thing was always the too expensive question, right? When you say this is where it starts getting too expensive, that kind of means that's where I don't buy it anymore, I would say. And at least when I had to use it in projects, that seemed to be like a reasonable approximation for what's like the maximum you're willing to pay here.
Yeah, you ask what's the difference to Gabor Granger, what implicit price intelligence does?
And how you would ask these questions.
Yeah, so basically what implicit price intelligence is doing the same, a similar thing like Gabor Granger, but using so-called implicit measurement and calibrating that with machine learning. So what do we mean? When you in Gabor Granger, you basically have an explicit question. You basically assume people will openly and correctly answer whether or not they will buy for this price. And we know that answers where people think, they tend to change, and they don't write what they would do. Not necessarily that they lie. It's basically they lie themselves. People lie themselves. So instead, we know that 95% of decision making is intuitive, it's instinctive, it's system one. Yeah, remember Kahneberg. It's governed, even in B2B, everything is governed by the first gut instinct you have towards this price and this product. And interestingly, you always have an opinion. Yeah, even if you don't know the product. And I have my favorite example is a screw in a garage, right? You get an invoice and there's a screw of $500. Nobody knows how a screw costs, right? But $500 is too much, or 100 even, right? But maybe it's a golden screw or whatever. But you have an opinion. Everyone has an opinion, and this opinion guides your thinking. And that's basically what we do. We use the so-called implicit association test. We analyze how long people need to answer a certain question, right? So there's a product with the altering price, and there are some adjectives basically, and does it fit to fair, attractive, risky, whatever? And they say yes or no. And the important thing is not so much what they answer, but how fast they answer.
Okay, so how much you have to think about something, and like let's say we stick with the Snickers example. That I would think is something where you have like a rough idea what you're willing to pay, what's cheap, what's expensive, and so on, right?
But basically, it really, when we talk about price knowledge, we measure the implicit price knowledge. And you have an implicit price knowledge for everything. Yeah, because basically you associate the category and the brand with everything else, right? And that's governs the reaction in marketing science called attitude, right? And attitudes can be measured best with those implicit measurement methods. Yeah, and the unconscious attitude guides your decision making. So and this we calibrate with machine learning, because in this measurement process you have some biasing effects. For instance, when there is a maximum price, we test 7 price points, but the highest price point, yeah, would be better perceived if there would be an even higher price point, right? So the method, the way of measuring it cannot be perfect, but in our way we set it up, we find out whether how much of the willingness to buy comes from the price point level or what they respond to the price.
Yeah.
So and this can be then in the machine learning model, and the prediction model can be changed, right? So in this way we get really smooth and very robust, even with 50 respondent. From B2B we use 50, but for consumers more. But basically pretty robust price demand functions.
Interesting. For us, always when we at Buynomics, when we use insights like these, and we will often also combine them with like what we see, for example, in transaction data or real sales data. So how do these align? If you say, like, let's say, just as a random example, the price elasticity for the Snickers at €1 is -2. Does that match to what we see in data? And one thing we always notice, I'm interested in what you think about that, is that in most, like in a survey, you focus on the Snickers, and the question people answer that to themselves is, do I buy the Snickers or do I not buy the Snickers? Meaning I don't buy anything at all. Whereas in reality, you have like everything else around it. Like you have the Snickers, you have all the other chocolate bars in the end. And the more relevant question is that not, am I willing to pay €1 for this, but do I pay would I rather pay €1 for this or 80 cents for something else?
Yeah, you're
How do you
right.
solve that? And because then things, for example, like a price threshold, in reality are much weaker than they appear to be in a survey environment.
Yeah. So what we found is that the price demand function we come up with is actually not a price demand function. It is a relative price demand function. And basically it tells you how much ideally how many people ideally would buy it if they would be the only one on a shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And there are tons of factors which changing them. Yeah. Do you have promotion, advertising? How good is the shelf space? Where is it in the shelf? How many competitors? What's a competitive price, and so forth? Lots of examples. But all those other chain are multiplier of this price demand function, and because of that, the price optimum still stay the same because it's a multiplier. Of course, things can be tricky if you have dynamics, right? So competition suddenly changes its price and so forth. Then you need to take this data into a simulator environment like you have. Okay,
yeah, makes sense. And then just to pick up a question, so how do you consider competitor prices in this method? Would you like include it in the way you're asking these, or is this not a relevant element?
So again, on default, you don't need to include them because the optimum price does not change because the actual pricing environment is implicit in the buyer's mind already. If the value of your product is mainly defined by the competitive pricing, then that's probably not the right method. Okay. It's not to price basically commodity type of products, because their basically competitive price is all what you need, right? But if you have a product, a unique product which has some kind of brand value, basically it's something different, and not 80% guided by competitive prices, then this method is, then it's important to measure the pricing power of your product. Otherwise, it would not even important to know it, because you just stay against the competitor. But still, you could include, if you say, hey, people don't know that the main competitor is $1, you can basically put this information into the description of the product. Yeah. So making sure that basically simulating the real market situation where the competitor beside says $1. So you can even simulate this specific example by simply putting this information in the product description. Perfect. I think so I think that hopefully that answered the question. I think time flew by. We're already at the end of the half hour, and we should stick to that. Is there anything we missed discussing democratization of pricing research and your specific method? And where should people go if they're interested in learning more? So the book has a lot, basically on our website, supra.tools, has lots of articles in it, it guides you to the book as well. So again, I can just reverbalize our mission. And the mission is actually that when we make price research now super simple and inexpensive, we open pricing research arenas which did not existed before. Yeah, most SMBs don't do pricing research, and even if you look at, I don't know, spare parts of the car manufacturer, never ever did they are tested on evidence, how people really want, how much they want to buy. There are some magic of modeling, but nobody ever have asked people who what they really want to pay for that. And if it's inexpensive to do that, it's worthwhile to take this angle, and it opens basically new possibilities. That's a mission.
Super interesting. Spare parts, of course, a topic where people probably don't want to pay anything, but they have to, right? Because if they don't buy this screw for not 500 euros, but I've seen 8 or 10 euros for simple screws, and but if they don't pay it, then their car won't work anymore at some point. So super fascinating talk. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that we'll get more chance also to collaborate, integrate your insights in our tool. Everyone else, I hope you enjoyed the half hour together with Frank in our new format. We'll do that, more of that in the future. Next week, we have our regular webinar, pricing tools, everything from Excel to SAS, where we go through the history of the topic and what the advances are. Hope you join again, and then we'll have these talks, aiming to have them every other week, alternating with our regular webinars. Hope to see you then soon. If we don't speak, have a great weekend, everyone, and looking forward to having you in our upcoming events. Thank you very much. Thanks, Frank.
Bye.
Bye.